Hello, and welcome to Journey Through Time, where curiosity slows down and science turns into story. Whether you're winding down for the night or letting your thoughts wander, I'm glad you're here. Tonight we'll follow a question, not one with neat edges or quick answers, but one that asks us to look differently at the world beneath our feet. What if Earth was designed, not picked off a shelf or assembled like a machine, but shaped deliberately or guided by some deeper process? Whether you imagine a creator, a simulation, a vast natural algorithm, or something else entirely, the point is not to debate, but to explore. This is not about shouting opinions, but about holding a quiet question and walking slowly through it. Look at your ordinary day. Light pours through your window, not too hot, not too cold. Air fits your lungs perfectly. Water, clear, tasteless, essential, waits nearby. Plants, animals, sky, gravity. Everything lines up in a way that makes life not only possible, but comfortable. Beneath that comfort sits something worth pausing over. Coincidence or arrangement? Puzzle pieces falling into place a bit too neatly? Science has mapped a strong framework of planetary formation and evolution, but even inside that framework, things look remarkably convenient. Earth orbits a stable star, sits within the so-called habitable zone, maintains a tilt and rotation speed that moderate climate, and has a moon that stabilizes that tilt. It carries a magnetic field shielding us from solar radiation, a balanced atmosphere, and oceans that temper temperature. Each factor could have been wildly different, and without them, life as we know it might never have appeared. This is often called the anthropic principle. The universe looks suited to life because we're here to notice. If it weren't suited, we wouldn't exist to ask. Yet that tidy explanation doesn't stop the wondering. Is it really enough to shrug and say, we're here, so it worked somehow? Or is that sidestepping something deeper? Patterns don't prove purpose, but they can hint at it, or at least make it worth considering. We're not approaching this as believers or skeptics, but as explorers. We'll wander through clues and coincidences, physics and philosophy, math and metaphor, without needing to land on a single conclusion. Whether Earth was designed or not, it behaves in ways that often feel as if it were an observation, an invitation to ask what would change if it really was. Humans have always been drawn to meaning, to structure, to intention. The urge to look at the sky and feel it speaks to us is older than any temple or book. Our brains light up at symmetry, faces, flowers, shells, galaxies. Symmetry feels right. That preference isn't proof, but it's a starting point. Why does randomness keep giving us order? Why does beauty so often align with efficiency and mathematical elegance? Even within a purely scientific worldview, we end up swimming in philosophical questions. Biology adds to this mystery. Proteins fold precisely, DNA encodes information efficiently, and cells communicate with astonishing accuracy. Evolution is messy, yes, but the systems it produces often look tuned rather than improvised. Design, in this sense, needn't imply a conscious designer. It can simply mean pattern, structure, direction. Earth might not have been built from scratch, but selected out of many possible worlds. But then, how many possible Earths are there? Are we just the lucky one in a trillion? Or is the cosmos full of planets like this? As astronomers discover thousands of exoplanets, most turn out to be too hot, too cold, too big, too dense, or too unstable. The more we look, the clearer Earth's rarity appears. And beyond location, there's timing. Billions of years of relative stability, tectonic recycling of carbon, just enough cosmic quiet for life to take root. None of this is impossible, but it is a puzzle of improbable alignments. People explain this in many ways, divine purpose, cosmic luck, inevitability. The idea that Earth might be intentionally arranged remains compelling, not because it's provable, but because it resonates with our lived experience as creatures who plan, imagine, and build. Still, patterns can emerge from randomness, and perception can mislead. Just because something feels designed doesn't make it so. But just because science can describe how something happened doesn't tell us why, or whether a deeper structure sits behind the curtain. The question here isn't about disproving science or proving belief. It's about holding space where both can ask the same question from different angles. What if Earth was designed? What changes? What stays the same? And what, if anything, does that mean for how we live and how we see each other? As we continue, we'll look at the orbital sweet spot, the moon's strange role, the balance of the atmosphere, and the systems that had to align for intelligent life to emerge. Each example opens its own set of questions, not just scientific but existential. Whether life is an accident or an intention changes how we see our place in the cosmos. And that, more than any single fact, is why this question feels different. It taps into an ancient human instinct, the urge to connect what is with what means, to turn facts into purpose. Science and meaning aren't always separate realms. The more we learn about how the universe works, the more we see structure and outcome converge in ways that feel guided, or at least surprisingly consistent. Carbon, for instance, forms the backbone of DNA and proteins, yet it exists only because of narrow conditions inside stars. Change the physics of fusion slightly, and you get no carbon, no life, no us. The constants of nature appear fine-tuned, their values sitting inside very tight ranges that allow complex matter to exist at all. One explanation is the multiverse, countless universes each with different constants, with us in the one where everything lines up. That could make sense, but we have no evidence yet. Even if we did, it only pushes the question back. Why does any universe exist at all? Why these laws? Why not nothing? Science doesn't need purpose to work. You can measure gravity without believing it was created. You can decode DNA without asking who wrote it. But science also doesn't forbid those questions. It simply doesn't depend on them. This leaves room for a middle ground where evidence and wonder can coexist. Fine-tuning itself becomes worth noticing, not as proof, but as a signpost. Different people picture different designers, a conscious God, a built-in intelligence of the universe, or simply the human mind projecting patterns. But regardless of answer, the question persists. It sits quietly behind every discovery, every telescope image, every equation, framed by the strange fact that we can understand any of it at all. Why should the minds of a small primate species be able to model galaxies and quantum fields? Perhaps our ability to understand the universe is itself part of some larger pattern. These questions don't threaten science. They deepen it. They show how evidence can lead us to the edge of mystery and invite us to keep going. We don't need every answer for a question to matter. Sometimes holding the question is enough. This one, whether Earth was built, arranged, or shaped in some way, is as old as humanity and as modern as our latest instruments. The deeper we look into the building blocks of matter and the dynamics of life, the sharper it becomes. To look closely at Earth is to see not just a planet, but an intricate system of systems, layers, cycles, balances, and feedback loops, each one resting on the others. If the first part of our journey traced the big picture, we now begin moving across the planet itself. Its crust and mantle, the movement of plates, the thin envelope of air, the oceans that flow across its face, and the quiet companion in the sky that steadies its tilt. The ground beneath us is not a static floor. Earth's crust is cracked into enormous plates, floating on a hotter, softer mantle. These plates drift slowly, collide, split, and recycle material over millions of years. Without this motion, the planet's surface would flatten, nutrients would stagnate, and the carbon cycle would break. Tectonic activity pushes mountains up, releases gases from volcanoes, and draws carbon back into stone through weathering. This slow exchange acts like a planetary thermostat, stabilizing climate enough for life to evolve and persist. If the crust were thicker or the mantle stiffer, plates might never move. If it were too soft, the surface would be constantly remade, leaving no stable ground. Earth has landed in the middle, dynamic but not chaotic, stable but not static. Soil is another example. It's more than dirt, a blend of minerals, organic matter, air, and water. Too much sand and water drains away. Too much clay and roots suffocate. Forests, crops, and ecosystems thrive in a narrow band of ratios. Plants and soils evolve together, a feedback loop where each shapes the other. Insects and flowers, fungi and trees, bacteria and animals, all woven into co-evolutionary systems that work together. Sometimes the fit is so exact, it looks like assembly rather than adaptation. Seeds illustrate this elegantly. Each contains instructions, stored energy, and structure waiting for a signal. When moisture, temperature, and light align, the transformation begins. Roots go down, stems go up. Shape, timing, and sensitivity work with extraordinary precision. Even how seeds travel, sticking, floating, or drifting, seems optimized. Evolution explains much of this. But evolution works on available materials. It can't invent from nothing. It reshapes what's there. And when we look at those starting materials, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, we find not just abundance, but versatility. They bond easily, form stable molecules, store energy well. Chemistry itself seems to lean toward complexity. Water adds another layer of wonder. It's simple. 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, but its behavior is rare. It exists as solid, liquid, and gas within Earth's natural temperature range. It has high specific heat, stabilizing climate. It dissolves more substances than almost any other liquid, moving nutrients through soil, rivers, and cells. And it expands when it freezes, making ice float and insulating life below. If the angle between hydrogen and oxygen were slightly different, water's properties would shift radically, and so would everything depending on it. In our universe, on our planet, water turns out to be exactly what life needs. Fractals and spirals hint at deeper rules. River networks, tree branches, blood vessels, mountain ranges, patterns repeat at different scales, moving resources efficiently. Spirals appear in shells, storms, galaxies, pine cones, fingerprints. The Fibonacci sequence, the ratios approaching the golden angle, shows up where growth needs to pack efficiently. These aren't signs of a hidden architect, so much as evidence that matter under certain conditions finds stable, efficient solutions. Yet the result aligns with what we perceive as elegant or beautiful. Why should stable solutions also look pleasing? Why should structures that help plants grow also echo in galaxies? Sacred geometry, honeycomb hexagons, crystal lattices, different domains, same shapes. Bees build hexagons because it's efficient. Basalt columns and bubble foams form hexagons from pure physics. Crystals grow into cubes, prisms, or branching patterns guided by molecular bonds and temperature. No sculptor is needed, yet the outcome feels sculpted. Fractals, symmetry, and self-similarity allow systems to reach many points from a core with minimal cost. Trees, lungs, rivers, lightning, veins. Small rules, repeated, produce large patterns. This consistency extends into the smallest scales of life. DNA itself acts like a code, written in a four-letter alphabet, with instructions, punctuation, and context. It stores data, regulates timing, and repairs itself. Proteins fold into precise shapes. Enzymes speed up reactions by factors of millions. Molecular motors haul cargo inside cells. Everything coordinates in layers. Evolution can explain how such systems develop gradually, but the systems themselves remain strikingly efficient. Not perfect, mutations and breakdowns happen, but resilient and adaptive. DNA behaves less like a chemical accident and more like a language with syntax, loops, and conditional rules. A gene isn't just a recipe, but a regulated unit with start and stop signals, enhancers and silencers, introns and exons. Most of the genome is shared across all life forms, suggesting a common origin. Yet the genetic code we have, the mapping of triplets to amino acids, seems unusually robust against errors, as if optimized for resilience. We can imagine other codes in theory, but what evolved works astonishingly well. Scientists now edit DNA, write synthetic sequences, and test alternative codes. So far, these experiments highlight how remarkable the natural one is. It's not just data, it's executable, adaptable, and universal. Whether you see that as evidence of deep laws, an emergent pattern, or a hidden hand, the structure itself invites the question. Biology manages information the way software manages instructions, except life's code writes and maintains itself across billions of years. Cells also depend on boundaries and feedback loops. Membranes separate inside from outside. Signals control growth, repair, or death. Networks of molecules communicate across tissues, adjusting to stress, hunger, or infection. The result isn't rigid perfection, but flexible resilience, a living system managing itself, adapting, yet retaining order. Zoom out again, and Earth's atmosphere plays a similar role at planetary scale. It's not alive, but it behaves like part of a living system. Nitrogen makes up the bulk. Oxygen supports respiration. Trace gases regulate temperature and photosynthesis. Small shifts can destabilize the whole. Early Earth had a toxic atmosphere. Photosynthetic microbes gradually released oxygen, triggering the Great Oxygenation Event. That change killed many organisms, but enabled complex metabolism. Feedback loops between geology, biology, and climate have since kept oxygen and carbon dioxide within a workable range. Not perfect equilibrium, but bounded variation. Atmospheric pressure at sea level keeps water liquid and gases dissolved. Without it, oceans would boil away or freeze. Weather systems distribute heat around the globe. Clouds, rain, and wind link oceans to land and shape life cycles everywhere. The atmosphere blocks harmful radiation, yet lets in enough sunlight for photosynthesis. Even small changes in composition or pressure would transform the biosphere. Gravity underpins everything quietly. It shapes the planet, holds the atmosphere, keeps the moon in orbit, and balances Earth's path around the sun. Too little mass and gravity would be too weak to hold air or water. Too much and conditions would crush or overheat life. Our bodies themselves evolved under this pull. Bones, circulation, balance, all tuned to 9.8 ms2. Astronauts in low gravity show how quickly these adaptations unravel. Rotation, orbit, and tilt also matter. Earth spins once every 24 hours, fast enough to mix the atmosphere but slow enough for stability. Its orbit is nearly circular, minimizing climate extremes. Its axial tilt, stabilized by the moon, creates seasons without chaos. Change any one factor, and ecosystems face massive swings. The moon is especially curious. Statistically, large moons like ours are rare around rocky planets. Mars has two tiny captured asteroids. Mercury and Venus have none. The leading theory is that a Mars-sized body struck early Earth, flinging debris into orbit that coalesced into the Moon. But that required an almost impossibly specific impact. Large enough to loft material, not so large as to destroy the planet, at just the right angle and speed. This moon does more than shine at night. It steadies Earth's tilt, moderates tides, and stretches our day over geological time. Tides move nutrients, influence coastal ecosystems, and may have helped life begin in wet-dry cycles. Many organisms use moonlight as a clock. Coral reefs spawn in rhythm with it. Insects navigate by it. Predators and prey adjust their behavior to its phases. The moon's presence is woven into biology. Even eclipses, the perfect match of moon and sun apparent size, are a temporary alignment. The moon is drifting away about 4 centimeters per year. In a few billion years, total solar eclipses will no longer occur. Like so many conditions on Earth, the window is finite, but long enough to matter. All these factors, tectonics, soil, water, atmosphere, gravity, orbit, and the moon, form a tapestry of conditions that support life not just briefly, but over billions of years. None of this proves design, but each piece fits into a narrow range that feels tuned. Perhaps it's only chance. Perhaps life is rare, but not impossible. Or perhaps these alignments reflect a deeper pattern in how the universe organizes itself. Beneath the surface we stand on lies a hidden engine, a world of metal and heat, driving everything above it. Earth's outer appearance, oceans, mountains, air, and life, depends on what happens deep below. This interior is not just a static mass, but a dynamic system, producing heat, movement, and a magnetic field that shields and stabilizes the planet. At the center is the core, mostly iron and nickel, split into a solid inner core and a liquid outer core. The liquid part moves constantly. Earth's rotation twists that movement into spirals, generating electric currents. These currents create the magnetic field, a self-sustaining dynamo known as the geodynamo. This invisible shield extends far into space, deflecting solar wind and cosmic rays. Without it, much of our atmosphere would be stripped away, and surface life would be exposed to harsh radiation. This arrangement requires a delicate balance. The planet has to be large enough to hold heat inside, but not so large that pressure locks the core solid. It needs the right mix of conductive metals to generate currents, the right rotation to stir them, and ongoing heat to keep the outer core liquid. Mars likely lost its field when it cooled too quickly. With its core no longer churning, the solar wind eroded its atmosphere and dried its surface. Earth has avoided that fate thanks to its size, composition, and spin. Above the core lies the mantle, a vast layer of rock behaving like slow-moving plastic over geological time. Convection in the mantle drives plate tectonics, building mountains, opening oceans, recycling carbon, and renewing the surface. This motion acts like a thermostat. Volcanoes release gases while weathering locks them back into stone, balancing the greenhouse effect over millions of years. Without this exchange, climate would swing to extremes. The crust is a thin skin only tens of kilometers thick, but it holds the elements life needs: carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, and more. Many arrived after Earth formed, delivered by asteroids and comets during its early bombardment. Too few impacts, and Earth might have lacked water or organics. Too many, and it might have been sterilized. Instead, it got a blend sufficient to seed life. The interior engine also influences surface diversity. Earthquakes, mountain building, and volcanism seem destructive to us, but they refresh the landscape, create habitats, and spur evolution by fragmenting and reconnecting ecosystems. Without upheaval, life might never diversify. Without stability, it might never last. Earth has balanced these forces for billions of years. The planet's rotation ties the whole system together. A 24-hour day shapes atmospheric circulation, ocean currents, and the core's movement. Faster spin would produce more violent weather, and a shorter, more chaotic, day-night cycle. Slower spin might weaken the geodynamo. Earth spins at a rate that keeps the core stirring, and the surface relatively calm. The inner core itself is thought to be slowly growing as Earth cools. This crystallization releases latent heat and light elements, feeding convection in the outer core and sustaining the magnetic field. We are living on a planet still evolving internally, its heart still beating. When the core eventually solidifies, billions of years from now, the magnetic field may fade and Earth's surface conditions will change dramatically. We see the magnetic field's presence every time a compass needle points north. That simple motion reflects molten metal, moving thousands of kilometers below, electric currents coursing through a planetary-scale conductor. Migratory animals use the field to navigate. Auroras glow where charged particles spiral down magnetic lines at the poles. Our technologies depend on it to shield satellites and power grids from solar storms. Even at the ocean floor, the interior shapes life. Hydrothermal vents pour superheated mineral-rich water into the deep sea, creating entire ecosystems independent of sunlight. Microbes feed on chemical energy. Larger organisms feed on them. Some scientists believe life may have started in such places, where minerals catalyzed complex chemistry and energy gradients powered self-organizing systems. The hidden engine also controls the carbon cycle over geologic timescales. Subduction drags carbon-rich rocks into the mantle. Volcanic eruptions release it back to the atmosphere. This cycling prevents carbon from accumulating endlessly or vanishing completely. Without it, Earth could freeze or overheat beyond recovery. Earth's magnetic poles wander and even reverse over time, but the field itself has persisted for billions of years. This stability is extraordinary. The geodynamo is self-regulating. Movement in the outer core generates a field, and that field in turn influences the movement. Small perturbations dampen out, allowing the shield to persist. It's not unbreakable. If cooling outpaces energy input, the dynamo will die. But for now, it endures. The deep interior also affects water distribution. Mantle convection helps cycle water between the surface and deep reservoirs locked in minerals. Over geologic time, this cycling has prevented oceans from boiling off or draining completely into the crust. Earth's oceans appear to be a steady feature, not a temporary accident. Seen as a whole, the interior and exterior form a single system. The core generates the field. The mantle drives tectonics. The crust supplies elements. The oceans and atmosphere respond. Life adapts and reshapes the surface. Each part supports the others, creating a planet both dynamic and habitable. This interior complexity isn't just background physics, but part of the larger story of why Earth is livable. The core and mantle are as essential to our survival as air and water, even though we never touch them directly. They build and maintain the conditions we need, shaping a dynamic planet instead of a static rock. Through asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, and ice ages, Earth has kept enough internal heat and motion to protect and renew its surface. This is neither perfect equilibrium nor random chaos, but something in between, a long-lived balance that allows life to persist and evolve. Whether one sees this as luck, inevitability, or evidence of deeper laws, the result is the same: a rare planet with a hidden heart beating beneath our feet. The more we learn about this interior, the more it appears tuned not to a single moment, but to an entire evolutionary arc. By holding its atmosphere, renewing its crust, shielding its surface, and cycling its elements, Earth sustains conditions far from equilibrium, but remarkably stable over time. That stability has given life a stage on which to unfold its experiments for billions of years. And now, as we reach deeper into the planet with seismic waves, magnetic surveys, and computer models, we see the faint outlines of a mechanism vast beyond imagining, yet delicate enough to sustain an ocean's worth of life under an open sky. In its depths, Earth carries the memory of its birth and the engine of its future. Above the solid Earth stretches a thin, restless layer of gases, the atmosphere, a veil so delicate that if the planet were the size of a classroom globe, its breathable air would be no thicker than a coat of varnish. Yet this film is the reason oceans can stay liquid, forests can breathe, and living cells can function without being shredded by radiation. Earth's atmosphere is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, with traces of argon, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and other gases. Nitrogen, inert and abundant, cushions life from extremes. Oxygen fuels respiration, ignites fire, and drives metabolism. Carbon dioxide and water vapor, though only small fractions, regulate temperature by trapping heat. Together, these ingredients create a climate envelope both stable and dynamic. Early Earth was nothing like this. Its sky was thick with carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia, hostile to complex life. Only after photosynthetic microbes emerged did oxygen begin to accumulate, a process that transformed the planet. This great oxygenation event killed off many anaerobic organisms, but opened the door to multicellular life. The change took hundreds of millions of years, revealing how tightly biological and planetary processes intertwine. Atmospheric pressure at sea level holds water in liquid form and keeps gases dissolved in blood. Without it, oceans would boil or freeze. Temperature and pressure together set the phase boundaries for water, dictating where ice, liquid, and vapor can exist. This allows the hydrological cycle, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, to circulate water across the globe. Clouds form, rain falls, rivers flow, and life renews itself. Wind and weather distribute heat, moisture, and nutrients. Jet streams steer storms. Monsoons nourish crops. Trade winds carry moisture across oceans. Even small shifts in circulation patterns can reshape ecosystems. The atmosphere blocks harmful ultraviolet radiation with its ozone layer, but lets in enough sunlight for photosynthesis. It filters cosmic rays and breaks up meteoroids. Its very turbulence protects us, dissipating energy before it can strike the ground. The water cycle links the atmosphere and oceans into a single system. Sunlight drives evaporation from seas and soils. Rising air cools, condenses moisture into clouds, and releases rain or snow. Water flows downhill, carving rivers and valleys, carrying nutrients to deltas and seas. Along the way, it hydrates roots, recharges aquifers, and shapes weather. This cycling keeps Earth's surface fresh, rather than static. Without it, water would pool in basins, grow stagnant, or evaporate away. Oceans act as a planetary thermostat. They store solar energy, transport it via currents, and exchange heat with the atmosphere. Warm water flows poleward. Cold water sinks and returns equatorward, creating conveyor belts like the Gulf Stream. These currents moderate climate, preventing extremes between day and night, summer and winter. They also distribute nutrients, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, sustaining vast webs of life from plankton to whales. Sea ice and glaciers reflect sunlight, regulating planetary temperature. Melting ice absorbs heat, freezing releases it. Over long timescales, glacial cycles act like a metronome for climate, advancing and retreating with subtle orbital variations. These feedbacks, ice albedo, carbon cycles, ocean circulation, interlock to produce relatively stable conditions, punctuated by abrupt shifts. Water itself has remarkable properties. It dissolves salts and minerals, transports them through living tissue, and facilitates nearly all biochemical reactions. It has high surface tension, allowing capillary action in plants. It expands on freezing, making ice float and insulating life below. Even its heat capacity stabilizes climate, buffering swings between hot and cold. Clouds play a double role. They cool the planet by reflecting sunlight, but warm it by trapping heat. Their distribution and thickness affect climate models dramatically. Small changes in cloud behavior can shift temperatures worldwide. Despite centuries of observation, we still struggle to predict them precisely, revealing how complex Earth's climate engine truly is. Rainfall patterns shape civilization. Monsoons, rivers, and fertile valleys have been the cradles of agriculture. Droughts and floods can topple empires. Water availability influences migration, conflict, and culture. This linkage between climate and human history echoes the deeper connection between atmosphere and life itself. High in the stratosphere, the ozone layer shields us from ultraviolet radiation that damages DNA. Without it, life would be confined to oceans or underground. The layer itself emerged from the interplay of oxygen, sunlight, and atmospheric chemistry, a protective blanket born from life and sustaining life in return. Trace gases also tell a story. Methane, nitrous oxide, and aerosols influence temperature and cloud formation. Tiny particles serve as cloud condensation nuclei, affecting rainfall. Volcanic eruptions inject sulfur into the stratosphere, cooling the planet temporarily. Forests and soils emit compounds that seed clouds. Even small creatures, termites, plankton, alter the atmospheric balance over time. The atmosphere is not a static backdrop, but a living interface where air, water, land, and life meet. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Animals do the reverse. Microbes process nitrogen, making it available to roots. Lightning fixes nitrogen into forms plants can use. Winds carry pollen, spores, and seeds across continents. Migratory birds ride currents to distant feeding grounds. Mountains and landforms shape airflow, creating rain shadows and deserts. Ocean currents interact with atmospheric oscillations like El Niño and La Niña, redistributing heat and moisture. The system pulses on timescales from hours to millennia, always changing yet broadly stable enough for life to adapt. In the deep past, massive climate shifts reshaped evolution. Snowball Earth episodes may have nearly frozen the planet. Warm greenhouse periods expanded tropical zones. Each transition pushed life to new forms, testing its resilience. Yet across these upheavals, the basic structure of atmosphere and ocean persisted, offering a stage for recovery. Today, even with human influence, the core mechanics remain the same. Solar input, planetary rotation, greenhouse gases, water cycling, and feedback loops. These processes do not require a designer to function, but their alignment is striking nonetheless. They occupy a narrow band where liquid water, moderate temperatures, and complex chemistry can coexist over geological time. The hydrologic cycle is also an information cycle. Snow layers record past climates in ice cores. Tree rings record rainfall patterns. Ocean sediments archive shifts in currents. By reading these records, we glimpse how tightly life and climate are coupled. Feedbacks run both ways. Vegetation alters albedo. Microbes alter gas composition. Species migrations affect nutrient cycles. All of this, air, water, clouds, and currents, forms the soft machinery sustaining life. It is invisible when it works, but catastrophic when disrupted. Its stability is not absolute, but resilient, like a balance point between opposing forces. Gravity holds the air. Sunlight drives motion. Rotation shapes winds. Chemistry sets composition. Life tweaks the mixture. Taken together, the atmosphere and hydrosphere are not just conditions, but collaborators. They shape the biosphere as much as the biosphere shapes them. Over billions of years, they have buffered Earth from extremes, providing a space where evolution can experiment, fail, and flourish. Whether one views this as a product of chance, inevitability, or something more, the outcome is extraordinary. A thin, dynamic shell, turning a rocky planet into a living world. It does not prove design, but it does highlight how tightly tuned the parameters must be to maintain a blue sky, a warm ocean, and a breathable air under a stable sun. Every world is sculpted by gravity, but Earth's particular balance of mass, motion, and companions has produced an environment uniquely stable over billions of years. Gravity is the quiet architect that shapes continents, holds air and oceans close, and choreographs our journey around the sun. Without its steady pull, the other features of our planet would unravel. Earth's gravity begins with its mass. Too little, and our world would resemble Mars, unable to hold a thick atmosphere or liquid oceans. Too much, and it would crush lighter gases into dense envelopes, perhaps more like Neptune than a terrestrial globe. Our gravity holds nitrogen, oxygen, and water vapor, without trapping excess hydrogen and helium, keeping the sky clear and breathable. It also sets the stage for atmospheric circulation, ocean tides, and the structure of mountains. The interplay of gravity and rotation creates the planet's slight equatorial bulge and polar flattening. This shape affects how Earth wobbles and spins, influencing climate cycles over tens of thousands of years. Precession, obliquity, and eccentricity, the Milankovitch cycles, alter how sunlight strikes the planet, pacing ice ages and interglacials. Even subtle shifts in orbital parameters ripple through ecosystems and evolution. Our orbit around the Sun is nearly circular, minimizing extremes between perihelion and aphelion. This stability moderates seasons, preventing catastrophic swings in temperature. Planets with more eccentric orbits can face searing summers and frozen winters, challenging life's adaptability. Earth's gentle eccentricity, combined with its axial tilt, yields a rhythm of seasons that is predictable yet varied enough to drive biodiversity. The axial tilt itself, about 23.5 degrees, is stabilized by the Moon. Without a large Moon, simulations suggest Earth's tilt could wander chaotically over millions of years, swinging between small and large angles. Such shifts would produce climate extremes, possibly undermining long-term habitability. The Moon's gravitational pull acts as a gyroscope, keeping the tilt within a life-friendly range. This Moon is an outlier. Among the inner planets, only Earth has a companion so large, relative to its host. Mars's moons are tiny captured asteroids. Mercury and Venus have none. The prevailing theory holds that early in Earth's history, a Mars-sized body struck our young planet, ejecting material that coalesced into the Moon. The impact had to be just right, large enough to throw debris into orbit, not so large as to destroy the planet outright, at the correct angle and speed to form a stable satellite. The aftermath reshaped Earth. The collision likely tilted our axis, mixed our materials, and accelerated rotation. Over time, The moon's tidal pull slowed that rotation to the 24-hour day we now experience. As it drifts outward at roughly 4 centimeters per year, days continue to lengthen by milliseconds per century. This gradual slowing influences everything from tidal cycles to the length of seasons, a slow cosmic metronome ticking through deep time. Tides themselves are more than a daily rise and fall of water. They pump nutrients through estuaries, shape coastlines, and stir oceans. In the deep past, tidal pools may have provided the wet-dry cycles essential for prebiotic chemistry. Life evolved under tidal rhythms, and many species still synchronize reproduction, migration, or feeding to lunar cycles. Coral reefs, for example, spawn en masse on nights tied to moonlight and tide. The moon's gravitational influence also stabilizes Earth's spin axis over long timescales. Without this, climate belts would migrate wildly, continents would freeze and thaw unpredictably, and evolution would be under relentless stress. This stability allowed forests, reefs, and deserts to establish long-term niches, encouraging complex ecosystems to develop. Solar eclipses, the perfect overlap of sun and moon in the sky, are a temporary coincidence of apparent size. The moon is moving away, and in a few 100 million years, will appear too small to cover the sun completely. For now, we live in an era of total eclipses, a fleeting alignment that underscores how temporary some conditions are, even amid apparent stability. Beyond the moon, the architecture of the solar system shapes Earth's fate. Jupiter's massive gravity deflects many comets and asteroids that might otherwise strike the inner planets, acting as a partial shield. The orbits of Venus and Mars create resonances that subtly influence Earth's path. Together, these interactions produce a relatively calm neighborhood where complex life had time to emerge. Gravity also governs the shape and behavior of oceans and atmosphere. It sets the scale height of air, the depth of seas, and the behavior of currents. Planetary rotation under gravity generates the Coriolis effect, bending winds and currents into spirals that distribute heat from equator to poles. Without this effect, climate would be more extreme, deserts broader, storms different. Inside the planet, gravity drives differentiation. Heavy elements sink to the core, lighter ones rise to the crust. This segregation created the metallic core that powers the geodynamo, the silicate mantle that drives tectonics, and the thin crust enriched in lighter elements that forms continents. This process of sorting, ongoing since Earth's birth, established the foundation of everything above. Even our bodies are tuned to gravity. Bones, muscles, and circulation evolved under 1G. In low gravity, astronauts lose bone density and muscle mass. Their hearts change shape. Plants also sense gravity, directing roots downward and shoots upward. Life on Earth is gravity native, its architecture woven around a constant downward pull. Gravitational interactions influence not just motion, but time. According to general relativity, clocks run slightly slower in stronger gravitational fields. On Earth, the effect is tiny but measurable. The same physics governs the orbits of satellites, the flow of GPS signals, and the bending of light from distant stars. This interplay between mass and space-time underlies the very structure of reality we inhabit. Over geological time, gravitational forces reshape continents and oceans. Tidal friction transfers angular momentum from Earth to the Moon, altering both orbits. Continents drift atop the mantle, their positions influencing ocean circulation and climate. Mountain ranges rise where plates collide, altering atmospheric flow. These changes create new environments, drive evolution, and erase old landscapes. Earth's delicate orbital and rotational balances are not permanent. The sun will brighten over billions of years. Tides will lengthen days. The moon will recede. Milankovitch cycles will continue to modulate ice ages. Asteroid impacts and volcanic supereruptions will punctuate stability with crises. Yet through these shifts, the broad framework remains. Gravity holding the atmosphere, the moon steadying the axis, the orbit circling the sun in near-perfect rhythm. The combination of gravity, orbit, and lunar stabilization creates a stage where complexity can accumulate. Without that foundation, even perfect chemistry and biology would struggle. With it, evolution can unfold, civilizations can rise, and creatures can ask questions about their own origins. This steady celestial dance does not prove design, but it underlines how improbable such long-term stability can be. Many planets may form. Few keep their tilt, tides, and orbit within habitable bounds for billions of years. Earth has done so, allowing life to ride its cycles of light and dark, season and tide, cataclysm and calm. Patterns whisper through nature like a hidden language. Wherever we look, mountain ridges, tree branches, coastlines, clouds, blood vessels, lightning bolts, the same motifs appear. Branching, spirals, lattices, waves. This is not coincidence, but consequence. Under constraints of physics, systems often converge on the same solutions. Yet for a creature attuned to beauty, these solutions look deliberate, as if an artist repeated favorite themes across scales. Fractals are one of these recurring structures. A fractal repeats its basic shape at different magnifications. Coastlines grow more jagged the closer you look. Trees split from trunk to bough to twig. Bronchial tubes divide like river deltas. Such branching maximizes reach while minimizing cost. Plants need to capture sunlight and exchange gases. Lungs need to move oxygen efficiently. Rivers drain water from wide areas to a single channel. Evolution finds fractals because physics rewards them. Spirals tell a similar story. From the swirl of hurricanes to the arms of galaxies, from snail shells to sunflower heads, spirals pack or distribute material efficiently. The Fibonacci sequence underlies many of these patterns. Each new element placed at a golden angle relative to the last, minimizing overlap and maximizing exposure. Pine cones, artichokes, pineapples, and daisies show it plainly. No conscious hand is needed, yet the effect feels like artistry. Crystals, too, embody mathematical order. Atoms arrange into repeating lattices based on bond angles and energy states, forming cubes, prisms, or branching dendrites. Snowflakes grow six-fold symmetry from simple molecular geometry. Basalt columns form hexagons as lava cools and contracts. Soap bubbles cluster into minimal surfaces. All obey the same energy principles. The result is a world where efficiency and beauty often coincide. Honeybees build hexagons not because they know geometry, but because wax flows and hardens in ways that minimize wasted space. Foam, bubble rafts, and graphene sheets do the same. Efficiency emerges naturally from local interactions. We call it design when we do it deliberately. In nature, it is simply the path of least resistance repeated over eons. Symmetry permeates biology. Many animals show bilateral symmetry: 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 lungs, paired limbs. This arrangement streamlines movement, balances sensory input, and aids locomotion. Other organisms display radial symmetry: starfish, jellyfish, flowers, optimized for interaction from all directions. Even asymmetry has pattern: the spiral shells of snails, the coiling of plant tendrils, the corkscrew of DNA. Cells mirror this structural logic. Membranes form bilayers automatically from the polarity of molecules. Hydrophilic heads outward, hydrophobic tails inward. Lipid bilayers enclose a space where chemistry can proceed safely, creating a self-sustaining compartment. Proteins fold spontaneously into shapes determined by their amino acid sequences, guided by hydrogen bonds, hydrophobic interactions, and van der Waals forces. This folding produces functional forms, enzymes, channels, receptors, without any external sculptor. DNA itself is perhaps the most famous helix, a double spiral encoding life's instructions. Its structure arises from complementary base pairing and the geometry of sugar-phosphate backbones. The helical twist packs information densely and allows replication and repair. RNA, proteins, and molecular machines all follow from this architecture. Life's code is written in molecules, but its grammar is geometry. Within the genome, coding sequences alternate with regulatory elements, enhancers, silencers, introns, exons, creating a multi-layered script. This script not only stores data, but also times its expression, interacts with the environment, and evolves new functions. Mutations, recombination, and horizontal gene transfer shuffle and rewrite it over time. The code is robust, with redundancy that minimizes errors, yet flexible enough to innovate. At larger scales, cell networks form tissues, tissues form organs, and organs form organisms. Each level repeats motifs from the last: branching vessels, layered membranes, fractal nerves. This hierarchy allows complexity without losing control. Feedback loops at each scale stabilize function: homeostasis in cells, circulation in organs, hormonal signaling in bodies. Organisms also interact fractally with ecosystems. Microbes inhabit our guts. Mycorrhizal fungi connect forests. Coral reefs house entire food webs. Nutrients cycle from soil to plant, to animal to decomposer, then back again. Energy flows from sun to producer, to consumer, to detritivore. These networks resemble webs because they are webs, bound by countless crosslinks. Mathematics describes many of these patterns, but the mathematics itself is discovered, not imposed. The same equations govern unrelated phenomena. Diffusion describes heat, particles, and opinions. Logistic growth applies to bacteria, markets, and rumors. Wherever resources flow and constraints apply, similar forms appear. This convergence challenges our intuition. We expect difference to produce difference, yet order reappears. Chaos generates its own kind of order: strange attractors, self-organized criticality, power laws. Sand piles collapse in predictable avalanches. Neurons fire in synchronized waves. Earthquakes follow statistical distributions. Underneath randomness lies structure. Even perception reflects these patterns. Our eyes and brains evolved to recognize edges, contrasts, and symmetries because those cues mattered for survival. But this tuning also makes us sensitive to beauty in mathematics and nature. We see elegance where nature finds efficiency. We interpret repetition as intention. This doesn't mean there is no intention, only that our perception is shaped by pattern-seeking brains. From another angle, life itself can be seen as information processing. DNA stores instructions, cells execute them, organisms adapt strategies, networks evolve, learning from the environment. Genes act like code libraries, proteins like tools, metabolic pathways like circuits. Over time, natural selection refactors this code, optimizing pathways and pruning inefficiencies. The result is a living technology far older than humanity. At planetary scale, the biosphere resembles a vast metabolic network. Photosynthesis captures solar energy. Respiration releases it. Nitrogen cycles between air and soil. Carbon cycles between atmosphere and rock. Feedback loops regulate temperature, pH, and oxygen levels. Like a cell membrane, Earth's thin surface mediates exchange between inside and outside, maintaining conditions far from equilibrium, but stable enough to persist. This self-organization does not imply perfection. Mass extinctions reset the board. Random mutations produce errors. Ecosystems collapse under stress. Yet the larger system endures, adapting and reconfiguring. It's not a watch ticking toward a goal, but a dance of constraints and possibilities, shaped by laws we're only beginning to map. When we zoom out, the repetition of certain shapes, branching, spirals, hexagons, feels almost like a fingerprint. Whether this fingerprint belongs to physics, mathematics, or something beyond, remains open. But it shows that life's architecture is not arbitrary. It is grounded in the deep rules of matter and energy, the same rules that carve canyons, spin storms, and build stars. Understanding these patterns deepens our appreciation of Earth as a unified system. Geometry links cells to continents, shells to galaxies. It ties life to its planet, not just through chemistry, but through form. This is why biologists, physicists, and artists alike see echoes of design, even where no designer need be. The idea that geometry underpins reality also reframes how we think about ourselves. We are not only inhabitants of Earth, but expressions of its rules. Our bones mirror its branching rivers. Our neurons mirror its lightning. Our DNA echoes its spirals. We are living fractals of a fractal world. In this sense, whether or not one believes in a conscious designer, Earth behaves as though governed by principles that favor complexity, stability, and beauty. Those principles give rise to patterns that can be described, predicted, and sometimes harnessed, but not easily dismissed. They are the grammar of a cosmos capable of producing beings who can ask why it exists at all. If patterns are the grammar of the cosmos, then information might be its narrative. Everywhere we look, complexity emerges not as chaos, but as a layered conversation between matter and energy, space and time. As Earth's systems stabilized, life arose. As life diversified, cognition emerged. As cognition deepened, reflection began. We are part of that chain, a late but telling expression of the planet's tendency toward self-organization. Consider the trajectory of information itself. Atoms assemble into molecules, molecules into cells, cells into networks. Each step compresses and transmits data across scales. DNA holds a digital code in a chemical backbone. Neurons fire in patterns that encode experience. Societies accumulate knowledge in language, art, and technology. What began as simple feedback loops between chemistry and physics has become recursive self-awareness. This is not just life adapting to Earth, but Earth adapting to life through a new medium: mind. Seen from this angle, consciousness may not be an anomaly, but an extension of the same principles that built rivers, trees, and DNA. Patterns scale up until they can model themselves. The same dynamics that produce symmetry in snowflakes and spirals in galaxies may, under the right conditions, produce insight, empathy, and curiosity. Life becomes not only a response to environment, but an environment in itself, altering its planet and interpreting its own origins. Earth's story thus extends beyond geology and biology into cognition. The planet's stability has allowed intelligence to arise slowly, shaped by cycles of climate, resources, and catastrophe. Glacial periods compressed populations. Interglacials expanded them. Agriculture bound humans to seasons, cities to trade networks, science to observation. Each stage folded new layers of information into the global system. Technology accelerates this process. Like plate tectonics moving continents, ideas shift societies. We now manipulate genomes, engineer ecosystems, and probe the early universe with detectors buried underground. In a geological blink, one species has learned to map its own planet from orbit, decode its code of life, and speculate on universes beyond. This ability is not separate from Earth, but a product of it, as natural as photosynthesis or volcanism, though far newer. This raises questions about the future. If Earth's conditions fostered intelligence once, could they do so again? If stability ends, whether by internal cooling, orbital change, or human mismanagement, what becomes of this layer of cognition? Intelligence may be a transient property of planets, like a bloom of plankton or a flash of bioluminescence, flaring and fading as conditions shift. Or it may be self-sustaining, capable of migrating, terraforming, or preserving its seed beyond a single world. In thinking this way, we encounter another symmetry. Just as life transformed Earth, Earth transformed life. The planet's magnetic field shields our nervous systems from cosmic radiation. Its rotation sets our circadian rhythms. Its gravity shapes our bones. Its cycles shape our cultures. We are both cause and effect, co-evolving with the planet's systems. This feedback loop blurs boundaries between environment and organism, designer and designed. Consider also the role of chance within constraint. Asteroid impacts reshuffle evolution, opening and closing pathways. Ice ages select for resilience, droughts for mobility, stable climates for complexity. Over time, these pressures shape not just bodies, but minds, encouraging foresight, cooperation, and memory. Civilization, in this sense, is a planetary adaptation, a way of buffering against variability, using stored information. From microbial mats to global networks, complexity tends toward networks of exchange. Nutrients cycle, electrons flow, ideas spread. The internet mirrors mycelial webs. Transport systems mirror circulatory systems. Even our decision-making mimics ecological processes, with competing agents balancing resources and niches. This is not anthropomorphizing nature, but recognizing that similar constraints produce similar forms across scales. Physics underlies even our social structures. Energy must flow to maintain order. Gradients drive change. Our cities are heat engines. Our technologies extensions of metabolic pathways. We export entropy to build temporary pockets of structure, just as stars fuse hydrogen, just as cells burn glucose. Understanding this continuity places humanity not outside nature, but deep within it. The notion of design here shifts. It's no longer about a distant architect, but about emergent architectures, systems that build themselves from simple rules. Earth's capacity to host life, life's capacity to host mind, and mind's capacity to host culture form a nested sequence. Each level opens new dimensions of complexity without erasing the old. This also reframes ethics. If we are embedded in these systems, our actions echo through them. Climate change, mass extinction, and resource depletion are not just local crises, but disruptions of feedback loops billions of years in the making. Conversely, restoration, stewardship, and innovation become not acts of altruism, but self-preservation on a planetary scale. Our technological reach now allows us to model Earth as a single dynamic entity, to simulate its climates, track its magnetic field, and predict its tectonic shifts. We see the fingerprints of fine-tuned parameters in data, not just philosophy. This view blends wonder with responsibility, for knowing the system's fragility heightens the weight of our influence. Yet even with all our sensors and models, the mystery deepens. Why should the universe produce a world where patterns become aware of themselves? Why should a self-organizing system develop a perspective from which it can ask why it exists? This recursion, nature observing nature, echoes fractals, each layer containing a smaller version of the whole. The search for life beyond Earth mirrors our search for meaning within it. Exoplanet surveys, spectrographs, and future probes all extend the question outward. Each detection of an atmosphere, each hint of biosignatures, tests whether Earth is a one-off or a common type. If we find many Earth-likes, the narrative shifts toward inevitability. If we find none, it shifts toward rarity. Either way, the question of design does not vanish, but grows sharper. Meanwhile, back on our own world, the systems continue. Tectonic plates grind, oceans circulate, winds shift, species adapt, and information accumulates. We live inside a planetary process, far larger and older than ourselves, yet intimate enough to shape our breath and heartbeat. Every moment we spend contemplating it is itself an emergent property of it, a feedback loop of attention. Seen through this lens, Earth is not just a backdrop for life, but an active participant in consciousness. It provides the gradients, cycles, and stability that let neurons fire and thoughts form. Mind, in turn, can now imagine and perhaps safeguard the planet. This reciprocity hints at a deeper logic, that complexity, once arisen, can become a guardian of its own conditions. Whether this logic is cosmic or local, inevitable or accidental, remains open. But it reframes the meaning of design from blueprint to process, from static plan to unfolding. In this frame, Earth is both cradle and crucible, hosting a lineage of patterns that have learned to ask about their own source. And so we continue, moving deeper into this question, peeling back more layers of connection and consequence. There is no closing statement here, only the next horizon. More systems to explore, more patterns to map, more feedback loops to understand. Across deep time, Earth has been a stage for cycles far larger than any single species. Continents drift like slow-moving rafts, oceans open and close, mountains rise and erode, climates swing from icehouse to greenhouse and back again. Life persists, adapts, radiates, and sometimes vanishes, but the overall system endures, shaped by physics as much as biology. In this continuity, intelligence is new and fragile, an experiment only a few 100,000 years old. Understanding this perspective means extending our sense of time. Human history measures in centuries and millennia. Earth's story in millions and billions of years. Tectonic shifts that seem imperceptible day to day redraw maps over epochs. Stars drift through the galaxy like snowflakes in a slow storm. Cosmic rays, orbital resonances, and interstellar clouds pass through the solar system on cycles no civilization has yet fully tracked. Against this background, our species is as brief as a spark, yet capable of glimpsing the firestorm around it. This temporal scale reveals how intertwined Earth's systems are with astronomical ones. The sun slowly brightens as it ages, altering the energy budget of the planet. Orbital variations modulate ice ages. Impacts from comets and asteroids deliver water and organics, but also reset ecosystems. Even passing stars in the Milky Way can perturb the Oort cloud, sending long-period comets inward. In such a dynamic environment, habitability is a moving target, not a permanent feature. Future Earth will change no matter what humans do. The continents will continue to drift, perhaps assembling into another supercontinent. The moon will keep receding, lengthening days. The core will cool, weakening the magnetic field. The sun's expansion will shift the habitable zone outward. In 1 billion years, the oceans may evaporate. In 5 billion, the sun will swell into a red giant. Understanding these trajectories reframes our present as a fleeting window of mild conditions. If intelligence survives long enough, it may attempt to manage or migrate from these changes, shading the planet, moving it outward, or seeding life elsewhere. Such speculation is not fantasy, but an extension of what life already does, altering its environment to persist. Just as microbes transformed the atmosphere, future civilizations could transform planetary orbits. In this sense, planetary engineering becomes an evolutionary adaptation at a new scale. Consciousness might also change in form. Biological brains may give way to hybrid systems, distributed intelligences, or entirely non-biological minds. Information could decouple from a single planet, moving through networks or vessels across interstellar space. This would extend Earth's patterns beyond Earth itself, turning local emergence into galactic diaspora. Yet even these far futures would still echo Earth's signature. The chemical ratios of our bodies, the curvature of our DNA, the rhythms of our sleep, the math of our perceptions, all tuned here, all forged under one gravity, one day-night cycle, one sky. Even if we carry them outward, we will do so as Earth-formed beings. Looking backward, it's striking how the conditions for intelligence overlapped. A stable climate allowed surplus food, enabling specialization and culture. Repeated environmental stresses selected for planning, cooperation, and technology. A large moon gave steady seasons and tides. A magnetic field shielded DNA from cosmic mutation rates. A mix of land and sea fostered trade and exploration. Together, these factors produced not only life, but minds capable of reflecting on life. This coevolution of mind and planet may be rare. Perhaps most biospheres stall at microbes, never reaching complex multicellularity. Perhaps most planets lose their stabilizing features too soon. Or perhaps intelligence is common but transient, flashing briefly and then collapsing under its own pressures. We do not yet know which model fits reality. What we do know is that complexity arises from gradients and persists through feedback. Energy flows from star to planet. Matter cycles between reservoirs. Information accumulates in genomes and brains. Each step increases the ability to store and process data, to predict and adapt. Whether in cells, ecosystems, or civilizations, learning and memory stabilize systems against shocks. Earth's current biosphere represents a peak of such complexity. Billions of species interlinked in a global network. Billions of human minds exchanging signals at light speed. Sensors mapping everything from ocean currents to cosmic rays. We are, in a sense, the planet becoming aware of itself, its internal processes mirrored in our external instruments. This awareness carries weight. The same forces that gave rise to our abilities also gave us power to disrupt them. Greenhouse gases, deforestation, and biodiversity loss are not separate from the planet's natural cycles, but accelerants of them. Inserting human-driven change into slow feedback loops can trigger rapid shifts, as seen in past climate transitions. This is our test. Can a species integrated into planetary systems learn to act as a stabilizer rather than a destabilizer? We can draw clues from Earth's history. After major extinctions, life rebounds but in new forms. After supervolcanoes, climates recover, but ecosystems reorganize. Stability emerges from diversity and redundancy, not uniformity. Systems that store energy in multiple pathways withstand shocks better. Likewise, civilizations may need decentralized resilience, multiple energy sources, cultures, and knowledge systems to endure disruptions. In the wider cosmos, planets may host civilizations at different stages of this learning curve. Some may have already passed their critical transitions, others may be extinct, and some may not yet have emerged. We search for their signatures, radio signals, atmospheric imbalances, megastructures, not only to find company, but to glimpse our own future. If the universe contains many Earths, the story of design shifts from uniqueness to pattern. We become one data point in a larger sample, suggesting that complexity and mind are emergent features of certain planetary conditions. If the universe contains only one Earth, the story shifts to singularity and stewardship. In either case, the awe remains, but its implications differ. From molecules to minds, Earth has been weaving complexity for 4.5 billion years. We stand at a moment where the weave is dense enough to reflect on itself, to imagine paths ahead. The patterns we have traced, fractals, cycles, feedbacks, do not end here. They continue outward into future possibilities and inward into deeper understanding. This ongoing process is neither guaranteed nor complete. It is open-ended, a dynamic equilibrium of chance and necessity. We are participants in it, not merely observers. Our questions about design, purpose, and meaning are themselves emergent properties of a universe capable of self-reference. And still, beyond all these speculations, Earth turns. The sun rises and sets. The magnetic field hums. Water evaporates, condenses, and falls. Tectonic plates creep. Genes replicate. Minds wonder. The continuity of process outlasts the particulars of any single form. This is where we are in the story now. Not at the end, not at the beginning, but in a middle chapter. The systems we've explored are still unfolding. The question we've been asking, about design, about pattern, about our place, is still alive, still without a final answer. The deeper we explore Earth as a system, the clearer it becomes that boundaries blur. The lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, biosphere, and technosphere are not isolated layers, but interpenetrating networks exchanging energy and information. Each influences the others, shaping the conditions for the next transformation. To grasp this interconnection is to recognize Earth not as a static object, but as a dynamic web of flows. At its core, this web operates through gradients, differences in temperature, pressure, concentration, and potential. Gradients drive winds, currents, chemical reactions, and biological metabolism. They are the engines of change, and life itself is a gradient-maintaining phenomenon, harvesting energy from disequilibrium and expelling entropy. This framework unites the planet's deep processes with its surface phenomena, and even with our own cognition. Think of the carbon cycle as a planetary respiration. Volcanic outgassing, weathering of rock, photosynthesis, respiration, and sedimentation move carbon through the system. Over millions of years, subduction drags it into the mantle. Volcanoes return it to the sky. This slow breathing keeps climate within habitable ranges. Our current emissions have perturbed this cycle, adding carbon faster than it can be removed, warming the planet in a geological instant. This demonstrates how tightly linked human activity is with deep time processes. Similarly, the nitrogen cycle connects atmosphere, soil, and life. Lightning, microbes, and industrial fixation all convert inert nitrogen into forms usable by plants. Denitrifying bacteria return it to the sky. Without this loop, proteins and DNA would be impossible. Yet the cycle also responds to human intervention, fertilizers, deforestation, and pollution, altering the flow, reshaping ecosystems and climate feedbacks. Energy exchange between the equator and poles also exemplifies Earth's interconnectedness. Heat accumulates in the tropics and is transported poleward by air and ocean currents. This redistribution creates weather, drives monsoons, and sets storm tracks. Disturb the gradient and patterns shift. Ice melts, currents weaken, storms migrate. Each effect cascades through the system, changing habitats and opportunities for life. In this context, intelligence can be seen as a new geophysical force. Our infrastructures rival rivers and volcanoes in moving matter and energy. We reroute water, reshape coastlines, mine mountains, and alter atmospheric chemistry. Our networks link continents with signals traveling at near-light speed. This technosphere feeds back into the biosphere, changing selection pressures and migration paths. We are both a consequence and a driver of Earth's evolution. This feedback between mind and planet echoes earlier feedbacks between microbes and atmosphere. Just as cyanobacteria oxygenated the sky, humans are carbonizing it. The difference is speed and awareness. We know what we are doing, at least in outline. This knowledge opens the possibility of steering our influence rather than leaving it to chance. Whether we succeed may determine whether intelligence is a self-terminating or self-sustaining planetary property. Another way to frame this is through thermodynamics. Systems far from equilibrium self-organize to dissipate energy gradients more efficiently. Stars form, burn, and explode. Rivers carve channels. Life evolves. Intelligence and technology could be the next step in this hierarchy, finding ever more efficient ways to dissipate gradients. But efficiency alone does not guarantee longevity. Stability requires feedback, redundancy, and restraint. Cosmic evolution mirrors these patterns at larger scales. Galaxies form where dark matter creates gravitational wells. Stars condense from clouds. Planets coalesce from disks. Chemistry emerges where temperatures allow. Each level sets the stage for the next. The same interplay of chance and constraint appears everywhere, suggesting a universal logic rather than a local accident. If this logic is universal, then planets like Earth may be nodes in a much larger network, each a laboratory for complexity. Some may evolve intelligence, some may not. Some may stabilize, some may collapse. We search for them with telescopes, not only to find neighbors, but to test hypotheses about how common or rare our trajectory is. Each detection of a habitable zone planet adds a point to the graph of possibility. Back on Earth, we see signatures of this universal logic in deep time. Mass extinctions follow power laws. Biodiversity follows fractal distributions. Ecosystem networks resemble neural networks. Patterns repeat because constraints repeat. Recognizing this repetition allows us to model and perhaps predict large-scale changes. It also invites humility. No system, however complex, is exempt from the rules. We can also look inward at consciousness as a planetary phenomenon. Neural networks in our brains resemble networks of rivers or lightning. They process signals, adapt to feedback, and seek energy-efficient configurations. Culture then forms a meta-network, exchanging ideas and values like nutrients. The internet, social media, and global communication may be Earth's synapses, firing across continents. This analogy is imperfect, but evocative, suggesting that what we call progress may be the planet's way of knitting its parts together. This raises the idea of planetary self-awareness, not in a mystical sense, but in a systemic one. As information flows intensify, the planet acquires a new layer of feedback, capable of sensing and responding to its own conditions. Climate science, environmental monitoring, and global cooperation are embryonic versions of this. Whether it matures depends on our choices. Looking further ahead, cosmic forces will continue shaping our world. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, solar variability, and galactic tides all operate on timescales beyond human planning. Yet intelligence could buffer these shocks, deflecting asteroids, engineering climates, or even migrating to new worlds. In this sense, the emergence of mind could be the universe's way of preserving complexity against entropy. Still, We cannot assume inevitability. Complexity is fragile, and feedback loops can turn positive as well as negative. Ecosystems collapse when thresholds are crossed. Civilizations fall when resource bases erode. Technological systems fail when their complexity exceeds their resilience. The same principles that built Earth's stability could undo it if pushed too far. At this stage of the story, we are neither at a triumphant conclusion nor at an inevitable doom. We are at a branching point where knowledge meets responsibility, pattern meets choice. We can continue to model, to adapt, to act as stewards, or we can ignore the signals and let inertia decide. The question of design thus becomes a question of participation. Not, was Earth designed, but, what will we design next? Even in this uncertainty, the underlying beauty remains. Every sunrise still ignites the atmosphere. Every tide still pulses with lunar gravity. Every seed still carries instructions older than our species. The background processes continue their dance, indifferent to our dramas, yet enabling them. This continuity grounds us even as we experiment with its limits. Beyond Earth, our exploration of other worlds extends this narrative. Each probe landing on Mars or flying past Europa tests our models. Each exoplanet discovered with a hint of water vapor or oxygen challenges our uniqueness. Each new telescope shows us deeper patterns, larger scales, and longer timelines. We are assembling a cosmic dataset that may one day reveal whether Earth's path is singular or archetypal. And so the journey continues, layer after layer, system after system, feedback after feedback. There is no final answer waiting behind a curtain, only an unfolding reality that invites us to look closer, think longer, and act wiser. Across 10 blocks, we have walked through a landscape of interlocking systems, rocks, water, air, life, and mind, tracing the patterns that sustain a living planet. We began with a simple question, wondering whether Earth might be designed, and ended by discovering how deeply woven its structures are, how finely balanced its forces, and how profoundly it shapes everything within it. In exploring this question, we saw how gravity holds air and oceans close, how tectonics recycle nutrients, how the magnetic field shields us, how the moon steadies our axis, and how water cycles through air and rock to keep life refreshed. We saw how fractals, spirals, and symmetries emerge not from a sculptor's hand, but from the inherent rules of matter and energy. We followed DNA from chemical code to living systems, and intelligence from neurons to planetary-scale networks. Whether one interprets these convergences as chance, inevitability, or evidence of deeper laws, the result is extraordinary. For billions of years, Earth has maintained conditions far from equilibrium, yet stable enough for life to emerge, evolve, and reflect on its own origins. This is more than a backdrop to our existence. It is the co-author of it. The question, what if Earth was designed, remains open, but it now feels different. It is less about a blueprint and more about an unfolding, less about a static plan and more about a process. Design becomes not an external imposition, but an emergent property, a dance of constraints and possibilities, producing complexity, stability, and beauty. Recognizing this shifts our role. We are not passengers on a finished world, but participants in an ongoing creation. Our actions, scientific, cultural, and technological, feed back into the system, influencing the very balances that made us possible. Stewardship becomes not a slogan, but a survival skill. Curiosity becomes not a luxury, but a way of aligning ourselves with the deeper patterns we inhabit. And so, as we draw this exploration to a close, we return to where we began. with a sense of wonder. The air you breathe, the ground you stand on, the light that reaches you from the sun, and the spiral of DNA inside your cells all reflect a planet finely poised between extremes. In contemplating that poise, you glimpse not only Earth, but the larger story of the cosmos, a story of gradients, cycles, and self-organization, of emergence and adaptation, of patterns that repeat across scales and time. This is the essence of Journey Through Time. To pause, to look closer, and to remember that even the familiar can be astonishing when seen in context. Whether Earth was designed or simply emerged, it remains our only home, a living world that has sustained life for billions of years and now sustains a species capable of gratitude. Thank you for traveling with us through this vast narrative. The journey does not end with these words. It continues every time you step outside, breathe the air, feel gravity's pull, watch clouds form, or marvel at the stars. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep weaving your own part of the pattern. This has been Journey Through Time.